My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Callie Edwards. It's July 31st, 2024, and we're at Linfield University in McMinnville. Callie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
First question is, why wine?
Why wine? Well, in the sense of reuse, I think that wine is a fantastic starting point. Wineries have a unique relationship with their consumers. There's a lot of opportunity for consumer education. You know, when you go to a winery, taste wine, they tell you all about the land, the air, all the practices they're doing on the vineyard, you know, everything about the wine. So there's a really great opportunity to educate the consumer there about why reusable packaging is important. And wine is in glass, right? Wine has historically been in glass. It's a product that's best kept in glass. And glass is one of the best materials to be reused. It's infinitely recyclable, so when it can't be reused, it then can be recycled. And also, wine is amazing. Why not wine?
The common answer.
I bet.
Tell us about where you were born and raised and kind of your early life.
Yeah, I was born in Portland, in Oregon. I grew up in Tualatin. When I was growing up there, it was the edge of the urban growth boundary, so it looks quite a bit different today. But when I was growing up, it was a lot of farmland. You know, I remember like practicing for my license, and when we first got our license, we would drive all around through all the back roads and the countries, go blackberry picking, just go run amuckus, really. And yeah, so I spent pretty much all of my life in Oregon. Grew up in Tualatin, moved around to different suburbs in the area. I now live in Portland. I've been here my whole life.
Tell me about life after high school.
After high school, I went to Portland State. I actually went there early. I did like a gateway to college program, so I left high school early, did PCC, got a bunch of credits, and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Went to Portland State for community development. And I graduated with my bachelor's for international sustainable community development. During my last year in college, we did a capstone project where we went to Nicaragua. And there we kind of studied all of the nonprofits and their direct impact on the communities. Nica is known for having a ton of funds go to nonprofits, but actually still having a lot of underserved communities. So we kind of went there doing like an investigative project on if these nonprofits were actually serving the communities in the ways that they needed. So that was a really eye-opening experience. And that got me really further interested in community development and kind of finding ways to bring knowledge and accessibility to parts of the community to help them grow.
So it's an interesting major, community development, international sustainable community development. Tell me what that actually looks like as a major and what you thought you might do with it.
Yeah, it's a great question. To be honest, I kind of picked it because it was so broad, and I felt like it was something that if anything fell under that category, I'd be okay with it. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought that I wanted to be an organizer for a long time. And then I realized that I didn't have the talking power to do that. And so then I wanted to work for nonprofits, and I started, my first job out of college was for this nonprofit called REAP, and they are part of, under the umbrella of the Sun schools. So I led a after-school program for all ages in high school, and it was kind of focused on elevating student voice and helping students find their voice, find their boundaries, and kind of push each other as far as they could to reach academic or other life goals.
So as you dive into something like that, what were you thinking about? Was there a long-term goal for yourself? Was there something you wanted to accomplish?
I mean, I feel like I still was finding out what exactly it is that I wanted to do, and I just wanted to feel that I was helping people in whatever way that was. You know, I think that I admire those people who know exactly what they want to do when they go to college or when they're in high school. I've always thought that that was interesting. I've always been the person who needs to do it in order to know if it's something that I want to do long term. So I kind of explored all the options that, you know, I could. I tried many different hats in the nonprofit world. Yeah, and I felt that as long as I felt that I was serving somebody, helping somebody, I felt good about that.
Tell me about some of those hats.
Some of those hats. Yeah, I mean, worked as a counselor type of person at the school. So I would sit in on students' classrooms and kind of like monitor the behavior between the teacher and the student, and then report that back to the family so that we would try to find ways to help improve the relationship at school. I worked with students to help do their homework. Time management was a big thing. And then, of course, leading the after-school program. And I ended up actually letting them lead it. They really loved designing the curriculum and standing up there and leading the class. And that was the majority of the time what we did. We also did other fundraising things. One of my students wanted to raise money for Dornbeckers, and so we all made a bunch of bracelets and set up a stand outside of the school, and she sold bracelets, and we took it to Dornbeckers and had a day out in the city. It was really student-led. Yeah.
What was your next step after that?
After REAP, I went to OBRC, Oregon Beverage Recycling Cooperative. They take back about 90% of all the redeemable containers in the state, pretty much the recycling monopoly for containers. And when I started there, I was the retail relationship coordinator. And so essentially I was responsible for maintaining the relationships of roughly 3,000 retailers in the state. And helping them facilitate bottle returns through the bottle bill. So I worked really closely with OLCC. I traveled all around Oregon. One really cool part about that job was that, maintaining these relationships, I got to travel all across our beautiful state. And I would help people learn the ins and outs of the bottle bill, what's required, what's not required, and then help them with the machinery, those reverse vending machines that you put cans and bottles in. Found some very odd things in those machines. A whole chicken one time. It's gross. Yeah. But so when I started at OBRC, that's what I was doing. And then the refill program was something that his name was Nick. He led the refillables program with Jules, who was the president at OBRC for a while. Nick had decided to leave, and so then I got invited to run the refillable program. And so I did that for about 5 years, running the bottle drop refillable beer bottle program.
Tell us a little bit about the program.
Yeah, it's a really cool program. There's 2 different style bottles. They're both an amber, like classic beer bottle, 12 ounce, 500 mil. They have a very unique neckline and embossing on the base that says refillable, bottle drop logo, very identifiable. Obviously created for the brewing industry. The bottles can be washed and reused up to 25 times. They were being shipped to washing in Montana. So the program started in a partnership of a bunch of different people. It was Nick and Jules from OBRC who had kind of the idea that they wanted to bring to fruition. And then Double Mountain Brewing, Matt Swihart there is very big in reuse, and they were actually doing this themselves. The brewery collecting bottles back, sending them for washing, getting them back, redistributing them. It's a huge feat for a brewery to do on its own. So they partnered up with Matt and Double Mountain and then OI Glass, which is the largest glass manufacturer in the world. And they decided to create the specialized mold and then start the program. So unfortunately, the timing of their start kind of aligned with the brewing industry transitioning into cans. So that was a big challenge in the program. And then the other large challenge was labels, which was something that, I never thought I would know so much about in my life, but now I know so much about labels. So when I joined the program, we didn't have a bottle washing facility in the state, and all of those were being sent to Bayern Brewing, which is in Missoula, Montana. And the folks at Bayern are just fantastic. It's Torsten and Jürgen. They're a couple of German guys. They started recycling essentially in Missoula. They started their own curbside recycling they're called long neck recovery bottles, like your standard amber beer bottle. And they basically started an entire recycling program in Missoula, and then they bought a bottle washer, and they're washing and reusing 100% of their bottles. So we were really lucky to partner with them and sent all of the bottles there for washing. Unfortunately, because of the challenges that we ran up against with the labels and not having enough partners using glass, the program wasn't able to grow to the scale that it could. And therefore OBRC did not buy a bottle washer. So it just, it had a lot of limitations on the program to be able to grow to scale.
And what was your role in those 5 years when you were working with that program?
I was the refillable program manager. So pretty much all of it, wearing all the hats again. I was in the warehouse sorting bottles. There would be days where I would just put on headphones, kind of rage out and smash bottles, and you'd get some emotions out. Stacking pallets, wrapping pallets, doing all the warehouse stuff. Going out to the breweries and talking with them, seeing their equipment, seeing how the bottles were running on it, working directly with OI for forecasting and ordering, working with the 25 redemption centers that are under OBRC to help with the collections, building up the bottle retention, the return rate retention, dealing with the logistics of getting all the bottles from all over the state back to the Clackamas facility, and then sending those for washing, and then coming back, and then redistributing, repacking. Yeah.
You talked about some of the limitations for the program. Tell me labels specifically. What was the issue with labels?
Oh boy. So labels, there's washable labels available, but not in the US marketplace because we don't have very many reuse schemes. So these labels exist. The frustrating thing is that getting them into the US marketplace takes so much money and so much commitment. I remember at one point I found a label that was perfect. We had partnered with international partners. There's a paper company in Scotland and a glue company in Germany, and they were all on board for making the first washable label in the US marketplace. 100% post-consumer paper material as well. So it was a beautiful label for the program. MOQ to get it over was like 44,000 pounds of material, which translates to like $1 million. So there was some really big hiccups in just bringing the material that we needed into the US marketplace, even though it already existed in other places. And then because we didn't have the strong participation in the program, there wasn't that much volume to meet that. We weren't able to do that. But there's been so much change in that, and I feel like being in that program and having all of those connections with the label manufacturers and print companies, we're really seeing a change now in driving and having more wash-off options available in the US marketplace. But with that partnership, we were able to bring the first 100% post-consumer waste paper material into the market because our partner offered to pay for it for a small amount, not the 44,000 pounds, but it was finally introduced. Yes.
It's a victory.
It was a victory, indeed. It was one part because you need the glue still, but it was indeed a victory. Yes.
Tell me about, I guess, biggest takeaways from that. Obviously, you saw an interest, but you also saw a lot of limitations. So I'm curious about, as you looked forward for that part of the industry, what needed to happen? What were the biggest obstacles?
I think one of the biggest obstacles was not having a localized system, having to ship bottles out of state. Eventually, we ended up having to ship bottles out of country because the partnership with Bayern, they weren't able to continue operating with washing our bottles in addition. So not having a local bottle washer and then not having the washable labels, therefore the bottles were not able to be fully washed. Those were obviously the biggest challenges, and if we did have access to that, it would have made the whole program run a lot smoother and cut down on emissions. I mean, I know a lot of our program participants were not happy that we were sending bottles so far away to be washed and sent back.
I'm curious about the participants, both on the consumer side and on the manufacturer, or the production side. Who was interested, and what percentage of people were interested? How was how deep was the market at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on who you ask. Like, I know not many consumers knew about the program. OBRC is not a consumer-facing entity, really. I mean, they are, but not with the refill program. It was kind of more, with that program specifically, it was more designed that the producers themselves would have more of the education aspect. And there wasn't a lot of funds going towards marketing or education on that. It was a small program. So Double Mountain Brewing was our largest producer, and a couple other large producers that we had in the program were gigantic. Bowie was in the program for quite a while too. Walking Man. We had a lot of folks that came in for a little while and then would leave. And that was mainly because of label issues and also mainly because of retailers. We started hearing a few years into me joining the program that retailers were telling producers that they wouldn't have enough shelf space if they were packaging in glass. They wanted to put cans on the shelf instead. They were easier to stack. They didn't have as much loss with it. Yeah, that was another hard challenge. So a lot of people, producer-wise, I think that they knew about the program, but because of the limitations and consumers saying that they wanted cans and the retailers not offering the shelf space, they chose to go with cans. Even if I would talk to some producers, and even if they wanted to do it, they felt like the retailer aspect alone was enough so that they could say no. Yeah.
So coming out of that, of those 5 years, what was your sort of impression of reuse space for in America? Like, was it possible?
I mean, it's definitely a big feat. I mean, it's a huge feat, especially in America, because we're so used to, the convenience aspect that we've built everything into today. So I do definitely think it's possible. I mean, I was so excited to join Revino because of the hardships that I saw and the limitations with the refillables program. All of that isn't here with Revino. The plan is different. We're going to be standing up our own bottle washing equipment. I've, in the 5 years, made great partnerships with label manufacturers and label print companies, and we have washable options. I have 2 for beer and I have 2 for wine. We have more coming. It just took some time. Yeah.
So what was the next step for you after OBRC?
Revino.
How did you become aware of them?
I met Keenan a few years ago now. I got an email from him. He said that he was really interested in the program, thought it was really cool, wanted to learn more, was interested in, maybe doing something similar. And so me and my boss at the time, Aurelian, went and had lunch with him in Austin. And I remember I brought this printout of everything that you would need in the warehouse to do this. And he was just like, wow, thank you for all of the detail. That's insane. And we just kept in touch ever since. And then Adam actually was the one of the wineries who was using the bottle drop refillable glass beer bottle at Cooper's Hall. They were the first to start. It kind of marketed it as the bistro bottle. And he was a huge help in getting other wineries to join the program. He got Pierce Wines to join the program and bring on the bottle, and a huge advocate for the program. So I already knew him that way.
Tell me about your impressions of what Revino was trying to do and about what made you want to join with them.
I think, first and foremost, just the energy behind it. Revino is focused on reviving reuse economy. OBRC had a lot of other different focuses, so it was not mission drift, but kind of in the sense, I didn't have there wasn't as much flexibility to grow because of the limitations of other things that OBRC was doing. So 1 for that. 2, the energy, the people. Keenan and Adam are amazing. They're so dedicated, they're so smart, they're so involved. 3, the washing equipment. They're going to get the washing equipment here in Oregon, stand it up. They're working really closely with wineries. I thought wine was the perfect place because they're still utilizing glass. As I mentioned, they have that unique connection to their consumers for the education piece of it, which is such an important part of a reuse scheme. So I saw a lot of opportunities for it to grow to scale.
What did you know about the Oregon wine industry before joining Revino?
Not much. Not much. I knew that we had a lot of great Pinot Noir, and to be honest, I think I was a little intimidated because I've always been really interested in wine. I've always had a desire for that lifestyle, being out in the vineyard, being outside, working with the land, making something with your own hands. But I was always a little intimidated by it. It didn't seem like it was something that young people could go do, or, you needed to know a lot before you stepped foot in starting to do it. So, yeah, not much that I wanted to know more, I guess.
So tell me about getting to know more.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I went to, one of the first days that I started with Revino, we went to the 40th anniversary of the Willamette Valley Vineyards Association, and that's actually where met you. And that was such a cool event because I think the focus was like collaboration and not crazy, collaboration and, it wasn't craziness, it was collaboration and something along those lines. And just hearing everybody's story and like seeing the people in the room and seeing the diverse crowd in that room. And it was a really welcoming, experience. And it took away a lot of anxiety that I had about learning more about the wine industry. I saw that this is a lot of individuals who care about making a beautiful product, who care a lot about the work that they're doing, about the place that they're in, and who are eager to collaborate.
So tell me about the role you were hired into and what your kind of initial steps were.
With Revino? Yeah, so my role is reuse development director, and we all wear kind of all sorts of hats, but I think mainly what I'm doing is a lot of label development and a lot of back-end data management, designing, a lot of conversations with our business partners, like our label manufacturers, OI Glass, anybody else that we want to collaborate and partner with, education, and then sales outreach.
So when you took over, what were, initial goals or initial things you had to either learn or do?
Well, there's a lot of technical aspects. So with like the equipment, with the bottle washer, with labels. So I knew that I wanted to make sure that I had a very strong understanding of all the technical requirements for the bottle washer, the electric bottle inspector that we needed. We're bringing all of that over here now. So lining up the logistics for that, getting the best quotes, making sure we're using the right avenues to move the equipment and get it installed. I wanted to make sure that we had a strong consumer education plan. I feel like that was something that was really lacking with OBRC and the refillables program because we weren't able to invest in that as much. So I've been doing a lot of work with our graphic designer, with our social media team, and kind of developing the communications to make a comprehensive ecosystem.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Obviously, consumer education, huge part of the success. Tell me about where consumers are in education and what are the key things you need to get people to understand to make this work.
Yeah, I think we know that consumers are asking for reusable packaging. They want more sustainable materials available to them. They want to purchase from people who are packaging in sustainable or reusable packaging. So we're getting a lot of really great feedback from consumers. Our winery partners are telling us left and right, like, oh, we sent out an email newsletter and people are calling in, reusable bottles, that's amazing, what do I do? So it's great feedback. I think the what do I do part is the most important, right? So we're building out that comprehensive ecosystem for return networks. And as we're doing that, continuing the conversation of, these are places that you can return this bottle, this list is growing, so save your bottles, put them aside, put them in the garage, put them in a little box, and then next time you go out to get more, bring them back, take them back.
So with that kind of enthusiasm, what about how do you handle people who are the less enthusiastic? How do you try to convince people who aren't excited about reusable glass bottles?
I usually try and pull out like the environmental stats on it. Like so much of our waste, we're creating more waste today than ever before. We've all heard of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. I mean, that's larger than Texas. We've seen the turtle with the straw in his nose. Like we know that all of these packages, these pieces that we're just throwing out, disposable packaging, is littering our planet. We're impacting ecosystems. We're impacting species. It's a huge impact. With Revino, by 2030, we can save like 55 million pounds of CO2 and 23 million pounds of waste. This is a scheme that works on a global scale everywhere else in the world except for here. And we do this for a reason. It's not, I think that people don't really understand the actual environmental impact that you can have in just a decision of packaging. So trying to explain that, maybe a little bit of guilting.
Well, of course. I mean, on the producer side, obviously we've talked to Adam and Keenan already. They talked about kind of some excited people on the production side. Tell me about growing that and getting more people interested in using these bottles.
Yeah, I think we've had wonderful feedback from partners, distributors, reaching out to us, wanting to work with us, have trucks coming back empty. Hey, we can pick up empty bottles for you, keep them at our warehouse, you can come and grab them. Wine shops, like this amazing Cork wine shop on Hood River that just recently opened. They called us up and were like, this is an amazing program. Can I please be on your map and act as a return location? Just people who are like excited and eager to be a part of the ecosystem and knowing that we're there to help them. We want, our biggest thing I think is collaboration, and the fact that we're out there working with people and building this network and maintaining all of these communications, I think is really exciting for them. Because it's an easy way for anybody to get involved.
What are the biggest logistical steps that you still have to deal with?
Labels, I feel like, is always one of those big steps, big challenges. Right now, when I was working with beer previously, label needs were different. With wine, for example, with rosés or whites, wineries want a label that you can put the bottle in an ice bucket for, 12 hours. I don't know why that's 12 hours, but they want it to stay in an ice bucket, label be completely readable after 12 hours, and then wash off, which does not really line up. So we have a lot of really great label manufacturer partners like UPM Biofor or Reflex, Fedragoni, Super Label. These are all people who are using their engineers to create like a highly engineered label that can do an ice bucket and wash off. So that's another challenge that we're working on now. We're very close. Another one is just getting the equipment here. The bottle washer is a massive piece of equipment. We have to use a crane to unload it from the truck to then put it into our facility. The EBI, the electric bottle inspector that we're using, is actually coming from Bayern. It's OBRC's electric bottle inspector. They purchased it for the refill program and placed it there because we had that partnership where we were washing there. So we're going to be moving that. That has to be completely disassembled, put into like specialized crates, and then shipped to Oregon. And then we have to have that team from Hoyft in Germany come out to do the installation and the programming of it. So just the project management of making sure that all those pieces are moving well is my challenge currently.
So once the pieces are in place, once the facility's up and running and you have the washer, give me an idea of workflow life cycle for a bottle. What is the ideal situation for the bottles that you're going to be creating and distributing? Yeah,
for the bottle itself, a winery purchases the bottle, right? They fill it with their wine, they label it, it goes out. Great bottles for reuse are ones that are being poured mainly on site that maybe don't have as much of a distribution. But we're hoping that those can be added as well as we build out the return network. So bottles go out, they get returned either directly from the winery, partnered retailers, partnered restaurants, possibly OBRC centers in the future, other recycling entities when we grow. Bottle gets back. Bottle has to come back to Revino, so then we use either ourselves or third-party logistic companies to make sure that bottle gets back to Revino. And then the bottle will be stored, right? And then depending on the mold of the bottle, right now we only have one, but we will have more. So depending on the mold of the bottle, those will all be organized by mold. And then when we go to wash, depending on the change part set for the specific mold, we'll wash all the burgundy bottles. Those will go through the bottle washer. The bottle washer has a process of about 14 minutes. So it's a single feed in and then comes out the same side. The bottles go in, they are sprayed with high pressure water, very hot water, and then they go into a hot caustic bath. It's about 170 to 175 degrees, maybe a 1% to 2% caustic concentration. They soak in that for a little bit, and then they go up again and are sprayed externally, internally, and then they have to be cooled off. So then they go into like a kind of water bath cooling, and they're sprayed with colder water, and then they come back out. They go through the line, and then they dry, and then they get repackaged. And then from there, they can be repurchased again and start the whole cycle over.
It's like a bottle spa. I love that.
Yes, it's like a bottle spa.
A little warm bath, a little cold bath. That's fantastic.
A little relax.
That's fantastic.
A little relaxing spa for the bottle. Yeah. Yeah, I cannot wait until we get the bottle washing facility up and standing, because I can't wait to give tours and just show people exactly what this looks like. Like, Americans, I think, we don't have anything to compare this to, you know? So having it up and standing and being able to show proof and concept, show everybody, bring everybody over, is going to be a really exciting part of it.
So take me through. Obviously, you're still fairly new to the organization. Take me through your next year or your next couple of years. What are the big things on your checklist, and what are you hoping to accomplish or learn in the next couple of years?
Yeah. I think some of the biggest things on my checklist is making sure that our consumer education campaign is successful, making sure that consumers are understanding what the program is, how it works, what we need them to do. I think second off, kind of improving, like, I do a lot of data management and forecasting, so improving systems for that, because previously how I've all done it is just like myself in a spreadsheet. So working with Keenan and Adam, I know they have, they're so ahead of the game in all these new systems and everything that's in place, so working with them to kind of learn more about that. Getting the washing facility up and running is a huge one. I think, and adding more partners, continuing to add more partners as we grow to California and Washington. I think those are the biggest ones.
What are I guess we've kind of talked to others about this as well, but I'm curious what the goals are, short-term, long-term. What are the biggest things you want to accomplish with Revino?
I think short-term would be securing all of the funding that we need, right, to make everything happen, to get all the equipment here, getting that here, getting it standing, showing people the washing facility. That's all short-term. Developing out the consumer education plan, seeing the response from that, making sure that is doing well. That's short-term as well. Long-term, we want to grow. Our plan is to create all these different localized reuse hubs all across the nation, where wine consumption is a high percentage of local wine consumption, and build out these little washing reuse hubs all over.
Obviously, starting in Oregon has kind of a reputation for this kind of being on this kind of thing. Tell me about getting out into the country with this. What are the biggest obstacles you foresee once you step outside of maybe Oregon or the West Coast?
Yeah. Well, every state has different redemption laws, right? So depending on bottle bill, where that is, there's also a lot of legislation for EPR right now, extended producer responsibility. So depending on location and laws around the bottles and redemption, that can change a lot of things. I also think one of the hardest parts is just building out a comprehensive return structure, having enough people involved in the game to have enough return options that's easy for consumers to get to.
Obviously still fairly new to the Oregon wine industry, but I'm curious about your initial impressions of the industry here and of perhaps what the next steps are, what you're hoping for in the future of Oregon wine.
Yeah, I hope that we will see a lot of reusable Revino bottles with our Oregon wineries. I think that my first impression overall, I've been kind of amazed. Like I said, I thought I had this notion that the wine industry was something that it's not. I kind of figured it was like a bunch of older people who were very maybe hoity-toity, and it was a little different. And it's not at all that. Everyone has just been so welcoming, so warm, so curious, and very collaborative. I'm really shocked at the level of collaboration between everybody in the Oregon wine industry.
Tell me about the future for yourself. Anything else on the horizon you're excited about personally or professionally? Are there goals you're looking to achieve still, or things you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm always looking to grow. I think continuous improvement is kind of, my thing. I'm exploring a lot right now with Revino. I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things that I wouldn't otherwise do. I'm definitely more like personally introverted, and I like to work with music and kind of like dig in deep to my work. And Revino's definitely brought me out of that shell a little bit, so I'm curious to see how it goes with that. I want to make sure that Revino is standing up and successful. I would love to see the notion come to fruition. I'd love to see the impact that we could have. And I'd really like to change the overall behavior. I think that it would be a really beautiful thing to see consumers changing back to a behavior, thinking about, oh, this is a material that I have that I could take back, rather than this is just something that I just need to throw away. I would love to see that.
All right, that's really all the questions I have for you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything that we didn't cover today that you wanted to cover?
I don't think so.
Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us. This beautiful July day today. I appreciate you coming out, and we'll go ahead and let you off the hook.
Okay, thank you.
You.